Yeah, feeling good on a Wednesday.
Welcome to Homers Anonymous. It's February 7th, 2015. We're here in Sanjay's living room with special guest Rahul.
What's up, Bros?
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of special guests lately, so it's not really that special, but
Yeah, I think the last 2 episodes now, so it makes it 3 in a row.
it's been 3 in a row we've had special guests, but okay, I guess Rahul will be the last for a while.
I think I'm more special than Elliot.
That's not hard.
Saturday night and we in the spot. Don't believe me, just watch. Come on. Don't believe me, just
So today we're going to do our preview for NBA All-Star Weekend that's coming up in the next couple weeks, and I don't know, just talk about the rosters, talk about who we, what selections we liked and didn't like, just hit on a couple other NBA topics with Rahul and get his whole
Take on
it. So one thing I wanted to talk about first though was definitely the state of All-Star Saturday night, and I guess even All-Star Friday night, if you want to talk about that. I've always been someone who's been really interested in All-Star Saturday night. Like, if I don't have plans that night, I'm more than happy to just sit in and crack a beer open and just watch like a bunch of my favorite NBA players doing dumb drills like that don't really mean anything. But I mean, it's still fun to watch. So it's kind of disappoints me how low the dunk contest has gotten to. It used to be one of the premier selling points for All-Star Weekend, with like where you had the best dunkers and the best players in the league doing this contest against each other, and now you can barely even get someone who's going to get All-Star recognition willing to do it.
I'm absolutely with you there. It's turned really disappointing. I think we started to see a trend with this when LeBron, year after year, refused to do the dunk contest. We've gone from the years, of not just, better players, but better dunks. It was a better time. We had, I think one year it was Steve Francis, Jason Richardson, T-Mac, and Vince Carter. All the same.
99?
Yeah, 99, or was it 2000 maybe? I don't know.
It was 99. That was when Vince Carter did it and absolutely killed it.
That was one of the best dunk contests, if not the best dunk contest at all time. That might have been here at Verizon Center, if I'm not
I can't remember. 99.
That would have been its inaugural year, right?
I was 8.
Wait. Oh, for Verizon Center, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Back when it was MCI, as
we had Kobe Bryant do the dunk contest, and when we've seen Michael Jordan,
Michael Jordan and Dominique Wilkins used to
go at it
themselves on going against each other.
When was the last time Kobe Bryant did the dunk contest?
I think it might have been one and done, 98.
It was like 96.
It was the year before the lockout, so I think it was 90.
That would be 98.
So as we're talking about this, I just decided to look up this year's contestants because I really don't care enough about it to have known before we're talking about it right now. And it's Giannis, Sanjay's boy Zach LaVine, Victor Oladipo, and Mason Plumlee. And looking at this list, looking at who's done it in past years, it seems like to me, especially given the years Kobe did it, given the years Vince Carter and T-Mac did it, it seems like this contest really is and has been a young man's type of game.
Right.
So like a good way to kind of showcase new young players and see some interesting athletic feats. So I'm going to try to stick on the positive just because you guys have ripped it enough. I have plenty of complaints about it. Like I just said, I don't care about it. I'm not watching it. So it's not like I'm really a champion for it anyway. But in terms of the complaints people have, one, I don't even know if LeBron James is a good enough trick shot dunker to be worth seeing a dunk contest, or if he's just going to run down the middle, jump from the 3-point line, and maybe not get it. He's lost.
Okay, he's not going to jump from the 3-point line.
He's lost a step. I admit that. No, but outside of maybe just trying to see how far he can jump to hit a dunk, I don't know if he was going to do that great of a dunk anyway in this contest. So if they can position it in a way to see some young guys do some cool stuff and get to know some people who might be names like DeMar DeRozan a few years ago, just some
Paul
fun
George.
stuff. Yeah, I think that can be a great positioning for it. I think the real things they need to figure out, and that they've struggled to figure out, and that they still haven't figured out, is format. How long do you get? How many attempts do you get? It's really awesome to see, someone do something really exciting. And, you understand, the first attempt might not always go so well, but once you see someone, trying 10 times or, failing a few times and doing a super vanilla dunk just to get something in, it just doesn't feel fun. And I understand that that's just a fact of life and how it's going to work, and not everything works out, especially if you try something really creative and really difficult. But I don't know if it's just structurally it'll never be good because of those factors and because, life just doesn't work out perfectly, or if there's a way for them to kind of tweak things around the edges and at least make it exciting to see, and at least make it exciting to be 5 years from now, remember when we saw Zach LaVine do that awesome dunk and now he's an all-star on the Lakers, and Sanjay's waking up from his dream.
But I mean, nothing against this year's field. I mean, just because it lacks all-star players, that's why I guess Sanjay and I have said bad things about it so far. But I mean, it's been bad the last couple of years, even with good quality players. Like Blake Griffin jumped over the front of a car to dunk.
I mean,
and,
I would say the two worst dunk
problem.
contests, worst was teams, second worst was Blake Griffin over the car.
Right, but last year it was a pretty good field if you think about it. Paul George and John Wall, all-star players, very good in-game. John Wall not so much. I wasn't really crazy about him being selected because he's not really known for his dunks. I feel like you need to be someone who's known for your dunks and getting on Sports Center and everything.
Well, I guess
a DeAndre Jordan and Blake Griffin make more sense.
Well,
than
if you're
John
a point
Wall.
guard, you really shouldn't be dunking in game unless it's on a breakaway or something, because you're just going to get destroyed in the paint.
Right, exactly.
So it's
We'll see, but you
I mean, those are good quality players. I'm trying to remember who was on the West team. I know it was Ben McLemore.
That was so forgettable.
Last year. Yeah, it was such a forgettable dunk contest. But I feel like it's a mix between them having not that great quality of players and dunkers, and also trying to tinker with the format, thinking that that's going to somehow fix it. They just need to get back to the normal format of how it was done for so many years. I think they would give dunkers either 2 attempts
and then
in a 2-minute period or something like that, and they would get to do that and whoever had the best score overall of those 2 attempts, or the top 2 of those of the 4 entrants, would go to the next round. I feel like that's an okay format that's served people very well over the past 30 years. It did well, and was one of the reasons the ABA was able to market itself on such a high level with stars like Julius Erving and George Gervin and people like that. They were getting in the dunk contest and doing these crazy athletic feats that no one had ever seen before, and it did well for a good 20 years after that. So I mean, it's just getting the right dunkers into it. It needs to become a bigger point of pride for the NBA.
Well, I mean, the ABA didn't have the college rule, and it came about how many years after the NBA was integrated? There were other factors in there to make that exciting, whereas the stuff they're doing today feels more vanilla.
Right.
So,
I mean, I guess it comes down to the thing of what else is there to do, to dunk. But I mean, I feel like there should be some more things to do, with a basketball.
Going to Rahul's idea, though, branching off what he said, point guard getting destroyed in the paint. That's what they should do. Have a big guy, have a DeAndre Jordan, and just come at him, bro, in the paint, and see what happens.
To be fair, maybe you have Dikembe Mutombo, so that way, if he does block it, he can do the finger wag, and if he doesn't,
no.
I like that. Yeah, throw Boogie Cousins out there too. Have him just destroy guys.
Boogie and Chris Paul hate each other. So it'd be hilarious.
Absolutely, just throw down a guy in the paint,
I
mean,
then maybe LeBron would do it so that we can posterize someone.
We may be surprised by this year's field. Because Zach LaVine can definitely
he has
you've
ups,
seen the videos of
I watched him play UCLA.
No, I mean, looking at these guys outside of Mason Plumlee, because I just don't like centers in this competition.
Right.
These guys are all. Dwight's also 6'8".
Yeah, he's very short.
6'9", I think. 6'9".
He's shorter than Mitch Kupchak, who was 6'9" RGM.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Okay. So Dwight's one thing, but beyond him, who may have been at his peak, the most athletic center to ever play the game, it's a little tougher for centers. So outside of Plumlee, I'm excited to see what these guys can do, but I think partially due to lack of name recognition and partially due to whatever format issues are going to arise. It just feels like this isn't going to be as exciting, though marketability of these players is a completely separate issue that shouldn't be discussed right now because that's a different thing.
Sure, but I guess if we want to talk about something a little more star-studded, this year's three-point lineup is a really good one.
Yeah, I'll pull it up, but I know we know for the main contestants are like
here. I have it up,
Klay
and
Thompson.
I can just run through the names: Bellinelli, Curry, Harden, Irving, Korver, Matthews, Redick, and Thompson. So I'm betting Harden's going to win due to fouls he draws and ability to go to the line and just really sink those 3-pointers.
I'm gonna go. I never would have picked Bellinelli last year, and I feel like the 3-point contest is less of a actual test of 3-point competence
It's
and
more
of a. It's more of who's better at this format of like you've got 30 balls in like a minute, like make as many shots as you can as fast as you can. Like that's a different skill than having a man run towards you and close on you as you're about to shoot a 3-pointer.
Yeah, if you have a quick release, good setup, and you're not 45 years old so you can get between the different stations in a timely enough manner, then you're going to be able to set your shot up well and feel comfortable shooting them as a professional basketball player paid millions of dollars to score threes.
People also underestimate how exhausting it is.
Yeah.
Like, go out and shoot 30 shots right now, and I guarantee your right arm or left arm, or whatever one you use, is going to be a little bit tired afterwards. So, like, and with the adrenaline of it all, like, I feel like...
I mean, that and like
that's what killed Bradley Beal
like you
last
said,
year.
that and getting the lift on each three too.
That's why I think Curry isn't going to win it.
No, I think Wes Matthews is going to be the guy that
I've never seen like
he's
his
a great,
shot. I don't
he's
really
a
know
great
what his
3-point
form
shooter.
looks like. But I mean, Bellinelli obviously he's won it past year, so he's always got a chance.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
Klay?
Like you can worry about Curry's ability to like. Well, I don't know if you should worry about his stamina in it because he is a pretty like quick guy who's running around the floor like 40-some minutes a game. I might be a little worried about Korver because he's just a little older and the whole process of it I could see tiring him out. So in the combination of like young and I think like accurate and all that, yeah, I can definitely see Wes Matthews. I can see Klay Thompson. I guess just to pick another person, I just picked Klay Thompson just for the sake of...
I'm picking Kyle Korver.
You're taking Korver?
50% from 3 this year? Are you kidding me?
I think one of my favorite moments, I'm sure you love these too, from the 3-point contest is seeing these guys who are, role players, limited minutes guys, not so much this year now.
Jason Capono.
But yeah, guys like Jason Capono have their all-star teammates just mobbing them after having guys they probably never talked to during a real game.
Yeah,
They're
right.
like, oh, that guy's from the locker room.
Yeah.
Like...
I like Kyle Korver. His shot also, he's got a quick release. His shot just looks like it was made in the lab. Like they just made the perfect like form for shooting. Him or Ray Allen.
Traded for a fax machine.
That's actually true.
Yeah, very true.
I mean, like, we've even seen good franchise. I don't want to go on too much of a tangent here, but, like, the Bulls letting him go for nothing, like, that's a guy they could use this year. So...
It's a guy a lot of people could use this year.
But good for Kyle Korver finding his...
fucked up. A lot of franchises.
Finding his fit, too. And, like, like, the fact that he's been in the All-Star discussion, which we'll get to in a minute, good for him. What else we got left?
But it is kind of sad that the 3-point contest is just a lot more exciting than the dunk contest because dunks are a lot flashier. But I think the combination of quality, star power, and the fact that, like, you really shouldn't be watching any of these guys, like, bricking 80% of their shots like you can do with the dunk contest.
But I mean, the equivalent of, like, if the 3-point contest was in the same position the dunk contest is right now, it would be the equivalent of, like, Curry, Thompson, Harden, and, like, Korver and Kyrie all say, like, being like, I don't really want to do it. I want to rest and not do the 3-point contest. Like, it's not that stressful. Like, it's stressful at the time, but...
Yeah.
And then we have instead, like a Jason Capono, or I guess who would be another... Like, Channing Frye comes in to do the 3-point contest.
But I guess the difference is that I think those fringe players are still NBA players. I didn't think that they are. So I believe that they... in that setting, enough of them can hit like a very respectable, probably even surprising in some of these rounds, number of threes. Whereas with the dunk contest, I think it's this whole combination of like, I have to come up with a creative dunk, I have to potentially be super embarrassed on television.
That's true.
Because it's not going to work out the first 2 times I try it. So even if you do hit a really spectacular dunk, it's not like the 3rd or 4th try. You just look like an idiot.
Yeah, well, I think we'll never forget Chris Anderson, the Birdman, missing 13 straight dunks in one contest.
Yeah,
So there's been I get what you're saying. No one wants to be embarrassed like that, and that's.
But at the same time, if you're an NBA player and you enjoy dunking, and someone comes to you and says, "I want you to be in the dunk contest," you're excited.
Well, absolutely.
You're not like,
I would like to think of a league where people are fighting to be in this. So I agree with you on that.
Yeah. Who would your dream dunk contest be this year?
I was thinking about that myself. I would take Antetokounmpo.
Giannis, yeah, I feel like he's going to do well.
Who else do I like?
I think. Okay, I'll start off because mixing in like the old. I mean, obviously LeBron. Like you have to pick LeBron. Like because he would, people would flock to that dunk.
I want DeMar DeRozan back in there.
Yeah, I'd want to see what LeBron can do, but I'm probably pessimistic compared to everyone else about what the output would be. We'll
Probably
see.
because our expectations would be just so high. But like
Anthony Davis for sure is another guy I'd love to see.
LeBron, Anthony Davis, Andrew Wiggins.
Absolutely, he's been having a nice season as of late as well.
Yeah, and he won the McDonald's All-American All-Star. McDonald's All-American dunk contest, and I think he did that against Jabari. Chris Walker is playing at Florida now. Who else was in that? I don't think Randall was in it, but there was a
probably not, dude.
Rondé Hollis Jefferson at Arizona. There was, I mean. I can't remember. There was a pretty good field he was against, and he won it, I'm pretty sure, regardless.
I feel like the ideal dunk contest participant is, someone probably still on their rookie contract who's like a hyper-athletic wing.
Well, Eric Bledsoe's another guy I'd like to see as well.
Yeah, Andrew Wiggins.
Yeah.
Bledsoe's just a year removed from that. Thompson's in the middle of that. I don't know if I call him hyper-athletic. Like, there are a lot of people... I'm struggling to think of the names. John Wall's near there.
What about
Jimmy Butler?
Russell Westbrook.
I'd love to see Russell Westbrook.
Take a field of Wiggins, LeBron, Russell Westbrook, Giannis. That's like a healthy mix of all-stars / upcoming wing players who love to get up there and have like the length and athleticism.
The least athletic person there might be LeBron.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing.
It might be.
Yeah.
I like Russell Westbrook's chances in that, even with the one defender in the lane, which I'm still going to keep fighting for.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be a great dunk contest, but we can only dream. So I don't think we need to talk about the skills competition or the shooting stars competition.
No, shooting stars, I don't know the rosters.
Whoa. You guys don't want to talk about the celebrity game? I couldn't even find a roster for it.
I was going to ask.
It's very similar to last year. I usually enjoy the celebrity game. Don't judge me.
No, we had this conversation last year. I told you I judge, but watch it. Don't let it
The celebrity game is like a great premise. It's an excellent premise.
I would enjoy it more if it weren't for the fact that no matter what happens, they decide Kevin Hart was the best player in given.
Well, Kevin Hart's the only actual celebrity they can get to like be in there, and that's like if he's the only celebrity, then that's.
So Turner owns TNT, which is it TNT or ESPN?
ESPN has the rights to the
game itself.
Okay, yeah. Disney does not push Kevin Hart movies right and left, so my conspiracy theory is dying down.
But I mean, when the Celebrity All-Star Game is made up of retired NBA players, WNBA players,
and the Secretary of Education.
He's not in it anymore, but he's actually fun to watch.
Yeah,
Arnie Duncan. He was.
Thank you.
Did he play at Harvard or
Princeton,
somewhere like that?
Yeah,
he was amazing. Like the last couple of years, and he only won MVP last year, which was kind of a
Hey, don't knock Ivy League basketball. Penn has one fewer Final Four appearance than Maryland.
Really?
We made one, and if we wanted to win the national finals, we would have had to go through Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. So we are not national champions like you guys, but
Arnie Duncan.
Yeah. So I mean, he's not in it anymore. Kevin Hart and Nick Cannon, the two biggest stars. It's
you know what money I want to put on that in the next few. So Obama's out Jan 2017. By 2020, Obama will play in one.
We will pull up this podcast because I said there's no way. That would be pretty cool, though.
I think last year they also had T.O., which was that's a good one.
But I think it's like a couple years too. But I get what you're saying. I don't appreciate the game, but I can appreciate why you appreciate it. That makes sense because it's supposed to be part of the feel good part of the NBA. Just relax.
But I mean, then
it's fun. These guys. Well, Drake and Kevin Hart are friends with all these guys. I don't know about Arnie.
I think Drake's playing.
So Who's John Wall going up against for the? I actually totally forgot about this for the horse. Is it Stephen Curry? Stephen Curry's going to win, but it was. And again, no offense.
Oh no, if it's just these 2 playing horse, yeah.
I don't know why they picked John Wall for it. He's a great player. Absolutely deserves to be a All-Star game
Hall
starter.
of Famer? Were you about to say?
I almost so much Hall of Fame
Maybe a
talk earlier that
college Hall of Famer.
I almost did say it.
Maybe the college one and done Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he's absolutely an all-star and deserves it. But like, I don't know why you're putting a guy like John Wall up against Steph Curry. Like,
do you know who I've loved to see? Steph Curry versus Damian Lillard, because both those guys just play like they're on NBA 2K on Rookie with the Game Pro.
Yeah, that would have been a much better matchup and more.
You'd have seen like shots from like the middle of the stands and stuff like that, just swishing through.
I think they did a poor job of, and have been doing a poor job of marketing this as well, the horse game. I think one year, if I'm not mistaken, they even had Rajon Rondo in, which kind of makes you question.
Yeah, I mean it's tough because you need to find that right player who's got like a flashy kind of game. Like Pistol Pete Maravich was like the ultimate horse player of all time. Like no one could beat him in horse, and they used to televise him playing horse against like all the other stars of the '70s, and he would just destroy everyone. But he was the right mix of like a relevant star during the time, and also a flashy player whose game like transitioned to that kind of like form where he would still do well. Like, I don't think John Wall's going to do too well. He's probably most of his horse shots are going to be like trick shots around the basket, like where he has to like contort himself or something.
Well, he is more athletic than Steph, so all he can do is try to use that athleticism, because once Steph steps like 2 steps in from the half-court line and starts swishing shots, it's over.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Wall might be able to make a couple of like crazy 3-point shots, but like
if they added, if they had like a dunk horse competition, I think that'd be a lot more interesting to me. Like
the dunk that I'm about to do.
That that would be cool. Like see like Russell Westbrook insanely miss a 20-foot dunk attempt. Like
so basically isn't that the point of that LeBron and Dwight Howard horse commercial for McDonald's a couple of years ago?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that where they're like 360 and it was like all completely computerized of them doing like 3
is that
spins.
the one where Larry Bird steals their fries?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting. NBA has a good thing here, and I think Adam Silver mentioned at some point they could take over with like an FA Cup style tournament, even invite teams from other leagues, have 16 teams just go at it in the mid-season. I'm like, I don't know, that could be interesting. I wouldn't like to see All-Star Weekend go away though. Is the thing.
I feel like it's the right product. It's just not being marketed the right way right now, and it's not being executed completely the right way.
Yeah. So, tangent, when you brought up that tournament, because there's been a lot of talk about figuring out playoffs and all that type of stuff. I don't want to get into the full discussion of like how they should be doing the playoffs and no conference and that type of thing, because there's a lot of math to actually figure out a balanced schedule behind that. But what if they did a college conference tournament type thing for like each division, or mash 2 divisions together and do it that way? So you basically could have like the 76ers just being like, fuck it, we'll try, and trying to barrel through this tournament that's single elimination to get a guaranteed home court game for the first round.
I mean, I've always been a pretty big fan of that. Like you're talking about of the teams who didn't make the automatic playoff
No. So like in the simplest sense, you have the Atlantic Division. You have single elimination tournament. It's 5 teams, so the math doesn't actually work. But like you have them do a single elimination tournament at the end of the season. Winner automatically gets home court for the first round.
No.
Yeah, I don't really like it.
I don't like that.
I think personally, I think it's fine as is. I think very little of the East, and right now, maybe Cleveland keeps getting better. And I know I'm going to offend anyone here who likes Atlanta. Cleveland's the one team that would make it out west. It seems to me, based on the style they play.
No love for Chicago?
No love for Chicago, surprisingly. Though they still have, if they gel better, if Derrick Rose actually takes it a notch down, they could be a much better team. But that being said, I still think, there's a reason you have to still win your conference, win your division and whatnot. And, obviously not the best 6 team. The best maybe, 9 or 10 teams might be out west. But I think it's more, we've seen it for the last few years, but it's more of a cyclical thing, I don't buy realigning the playoffs now just because some people don't like their chances or are jealous of a worse team getting in.
I guess it is cyclical and it isn't, because there was definitely that period when it was only really Magic Johnson and those Lakers out west that were good, and the East was a lot more stacked. Whereas I want to say since the lockout, it's really been the West that has had more teams that you looked at and felt like this team could win the finals. And in the East, there was a lot more of you looking at it going fifth seed below, like, why are you guys competing in the playoffs?
Right.
And I feel like that's been going on for a while, and it's more been the exception in the last 15 plus years, where you look at the East and go, oh, wow, these playoffs are kind of deep, and I feel like a number of these teams like could make a legitimate run, whereas it just doesn't feel like that happens too often. And I don't know if that's just an NBA thing and that's just how the league is set up and it's just kind of stuck that way, or if you do expand the playoffs, like you might still it might drop down from like 3 crappy teams that shouldn't be there to only 2. Like it might not actually fix any of the problem.
What, are you talking about just abolishing conferences, or are you talking about what would be an alternate
even if you abolish conferences, somehow get a balanced schedule between everyone.
Everyone plays everyone else twice.
Just make it super simple, and then the best 16 teams go in, and then you go and compare it to what the conferences were. Like, I definitely think for the past 15 years there would be more West teams than East teams, no matter how you slice it, which just feels kind of weird. And I think at the same time too that the last few teams in the playoffs would always be kind of shaky.
Yeah, I guess it's hard to say. I feel like the only reason the West has really been better, or I guess dominant and deeper than the East for such a long period of time, since when you said since the lockout in '99, is just there's a majority of West teams in the West that are just run a hell of a lot better.
Absolutely. We were talking how stupid some GMs are before this.
I mean, the majority of the GMs are just pretty stupid. But obviously there's been turnaround on a lot of GMs. But I mean, we see organizations like San Antonio, like the Lakers when
Kobe and Shaq.
Well, yeah, what's his name, Jerry West.
No, the best example is probably the Suns, where they made some noise, late '90s, early 2000s, with whether it was Marbury or Nash. Have some or Marbury or Kidd, have some downtime, have that core of Nash, Johnson, Stoudemire, Marion, have a little bit of downtime, start making noise last year with Bledsoe, Dragic. They have different GMs throughout this period, they have different ownership throughout this period, and they're still able to find ways to, have a team, maybe it doesn't win a championship, but it's a championship caliber team at one point, it's a playoff contender at other points. And
you don't really see teams in the West, or I can't really think of any examples to the extent that we've seen in the East of teams in the West really just saying, okay, we don't want to win. We're just going to bottom out, get just acquire a bunch of draft picks and really commit to tanking.
Utah has somewhat, but I agree with you for the most part.
But Utah has always done it with the
Minnesota.
Minnesota? When did Minnesota?
Yeah, they're trying to. I mean, this recently.
They threw out Garnett, lost a bunch of games, and their rebuild kind of panned out, except it didn't because of bad contracts, bad signing, and bad structure.
So, I mean, they also had to deal with Khan, so there's that. You were going to do it? Go.
I can't do it to that.
No, we'll
do that yet.
No, if Johnny Flynn had been healthy, if they had signed Love for 5 years,
I'm
basically
sorry, they
all
could have drafted
promise.
Steph Curry over Johnny Flynn.
Yeah, I don't know
Ricky Rubio
that was a really bad
Johnny
draft.
Flynn over
No, but
Steph Curry.
I don't think a healthy
I'm letting
Johnny
that
Flynn.
go because every team can look back and say we drafted
Because when
someone
you get a
poorly,
point guard who can shoot from the halfway line, why not just pass on him?
because until a few years ago he was an injury liability, you couldn't stay on the court, and Monta was a better person.
We forget his ankle was made of glass, and hopefully
you can't argue. Okay,
this
is getting beside the.
Well, okay, let me wrap this up with one thing. I think one point to close this up, is the difference in stability. You have organizations like the Lakers, the Spurs, the Rockets, even the Mavs. As much as people want to put Mark Cuban as some eccentric guy, they prize stability and give people the opportunity, to succeed or fail on their own. I think in the East, when you have a team that doesn't work, someone gets scapegoated after 2 years. They overhaul the whole thing, and the next guy is already thinking, I have to win in the short term, sacrifices assets, and when it inevitably doesn't work, the next guy's already in a bad situation. It cycles over and over again. And with this better ownership, better guys who are GMs who are willing to work long term and think long term too, in the West, those organizations have been able to, to keep up with their success. Like you see the Spurs with 15 years between championships, with Duncan and Pop being the shared core. The Lakers were 10 years in between. The Mavs were contenders, stuck with it till they beat the Heat. These are teams that are willing to be patient.
But I feel like those are slightly unfair examples in some ways, because you basically have one of the best players ever with one of the best coach/GMs ever in each of those situations. So it's not repeatable. Like, you can't just say go out and get someone who's going to be the best of all time and it'll work itself out over a long period. That's tough to do. Whereas if you look at some of these other examples where there is some of that normal turnover across the board, across players, across coaches, across GMs, across ownership, in places like Seattle/Oklahoma, in Phoenix, I'm sure there are a few other examples that I'm just blanking on right now. You can kind of see that. I don't know whether it's luck and whether in 5 years Boston and Philadelphia, one of the two will pan out really well, or if it is something that's a bit more structural that these franchises have done, even though they had a little bit of turnover inside that time period.
Fair point.
We talked about this maybe a couple of weeks ago, whenever the Rajon Rondo trade happened. We talked about, I made the point of Boston basically coming to a crossroads with Rajon Rondo. They basically had the decision whether they were going to keep him and try to sign another, maybe not quite all-star caliber player, but another quality player, either in free agency or draft someone with the picks they got from the Nets, something like that. So that was door number one. Door number two was trading Rondo for what turned out to be
nothing,
and acquiring more draft picks and just hoping that one of these millions of first-round draft picks they have pans out to be another all-star. Where I think the East differs from the West is that I can't. I mean, you guys might be able to shoot this down right away, but I can't think of too many instances where teams have just thought, all right, we're gonna trade this all-star away. The Nuggets is the one that comes to mind, but they with
Carmelo Anthony.
But even they managed to get an all-star kind of quality player.
It's weird.
Ty Lawson.
It worked, yet it didn't. They were competitive,
right.
And who knows how much of that was coach, how much of that was GM. But at the end of the day, if you look at it a few years later, they're bottom dwellers like the Knicks. They had the same.
What I'm saying is,
yeah,
it's a normal thing for East Coast teams to be like, okay, I'd rather not keep my current all-star who's kind of disgruntled and try to build on this. I'm going to be better off getting rid of him and trying to just build from the bottom.
But you said it with Pierce.
But but think of it. If the Lakers had just given in to Kobe's demands and traded him back in 2006,
sure,
you can't just say, okay, I'm starting all over again when you have a quality player on your roster. You think can help you win a
part of that problem is this, and I think it ties back into the same thing, is players more and more, we've seen it a lot in the last 10 years or so, just demanding and forcing their way out of teams. And usually it is a guy on the East where he says, I don't have good teammates, I want to play with someone good. Not necessarily, they don't say get me that help, they just say I want to get the hell out of here. And it's happening with Melo. It's actually funny because it was the same thing with him. He was the rare guy we saw want to go out to the East, and I think he didn't want to be on necessarily what was a great New York team. He just wanted to go to New York.
Right.
Most of these guys who want to go somewhere with another guy to play with, and not just take some of the pressure off them, but help them win.
I mean, I think Melo, is his own weird situation of, I don't know him personally, obviously, but between Lala, his wife, and being from New York and a lot of these other factors, I almost think for him, especially given the way contracts are structured in the NBA, and for a player like Melo, you're going to earn the exact same money no matter what team you're playing for. I think for him, he's like, you know what? I may not actually win a championship here in Denver. Let me just have the same level of success in New York where I'd rather live, where my wife would rather live, and where like other aspects of my life are better.
Right. He'd have a better chance of doing well in the East than he would in the West, even though he hasn't done as well.
Well, and that's the weird thing, right? If you're a superstar, you might think like, okay, I'll give myself an easy path, go out East, whatnot. But yet we keep seeing these guys. I think this
And then you end up worst case
Yeah.
or best case, you end up LeBron, and what was
Yeah.
it, 08, and your team just gets steamrolled in the finals because you're not a good team.
Yeah, that was pretty brutal. But I think that's like a product of the West being good keeps people wanting to go out West. Like people they don't care as much about like how tough the competition is as they see that second guy they can work with, or that organization that is run well, and it's like a self-perpetuating type thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think the big piece of it is that if you feel like you're not going to win, or if you feel like you're LeBron back in 10 and you're looking at that Cleveland organization and what they've done, you're like, I'm not going to win here. I need to get the hell out of here. And I think that's largely driven by the fact that they look back at people like Barkley, like Malone, and see these Hall of Fame players, some of the best players of all time, being made fun of because they never won a championship because Michael Jordan was steamrolling everyone.
And they end up the butt of Damian Lillard's commercials now. Yeah.
But it's like, those guys are probably better in their careers than Damian Lillard's going to be. I'm only saying that just because they're some of the best players of all time.
Right.
No offense to Damian Lillard.
Second leading scorer of all time, Karl Malone.
The fact that really great players never win rings and people just anchor on rings so much that they think, okay, it's not happening here. I got to go somewhere else because I have a very limited window to win. And if I don't win, I'm not going to be considered as good as I actually am. And that, I think that combined with some other factors that increase player movement in general just get these guys super antsy and ready to go unless they look at that organization and think I feel confident. And if you actually look at organizations, there are only a handful where you're really going to look and be like, I'm confident these guys are going to make the right decisions and that I'm going to be put in a position to win. And they probably are, like the Lakers, Celtics, Spurs, Heat, and that's mainly driven by the guys like I'm blanking on the Celtics GM. Danny Ainge. You got the Buss family. You got Popovich. You got Pat Riley. Like, they're really only a handful of guys where you look at and feel confident they can do it. Maybe up in Toronto.
Are you going to bring up the Jalen Rose point?
Well, I'm not Jalen Rose, but like the Buss.
He was the one who brought that whole idea of the four main guys who 40% of or 45% of all rings that have been won by some form of Greg Popovich, Pat Riley, Red Auerbach, or Phil Jackson.
Yeah.
It's those four guys, and either a team they've coached or a team they've been running.
Yeah. So I wasn't going to go to that extent by bringing up Toronto, where maybe with that GM
Masai.
or there might Masai, maybe in some other instances as well. You look at the GM, you look at the coach. Maybe not Toronto's coach, but you look at the coach and you say, I think they have this good infrastructure. I think if I come here, they have good enough pieces right now that they're going to develop and they're going to make the right decision in the future to put us in a position to win. Like, we've already said, there are plenty of dumb GMs that make really dumb moves. They just don't feel like a lot of GMs that make smart moves.
To wrap this one up, you bring up the Lakers, and I'm not going to try and dwell on this too much because I'm not trying to make it signature Homer's Anonymous. But I think that's a really interesting test of what we're talking about, like stability and otherwise. The Lakers are at a point where ownership has clearly lost it since Dr. Buss died. Jim Buss has no idea what the hell he's doing, and he's actually said he will leave the team if we don't make the conference finals in 2 years, which isn't going to happen. It's interesting, and I made this point earlier, people want to play for one of these so-called prestige franchises, but I don't see players wanting to, nor should they, want to play for the Lakers right now. The team is in a state of disarray. It's not coached well. Mitch Kupchak has clearly lost a step or five as GM. He hasn't made great moves. The ownership is poor, so we'll see. I mean, everyone says, players want to go to LA. Well, the Clippers are a more attractive destination.
When they say that, they don't mean unless you have like a Phil Jackson like they did. That's like a reason you would want to go to LA. But also, you should understand, there's something different about playing in LA at a Laker game where all the stars are sitting around the side.
Well, absolutely.
You're putting on that Lakers yellow and purple.
It also helps that a lot of these guys are from LA, and that's what they dreamt of as kids.
Right. I mean, for some reason, I thought Chicago would have the same kind of pull for players, and I thought actually they had a good chance of getting Carmelo over.
Yeah, I think a lot of us
just
thought
because
that.
so many people from our generation grew up watching Michael. Like, we grew up seeing Chicago as this successful, like, big time franchise, and that's what the generation before us, or I guess a couple of years older than us, thought about the Lakers and the Celtics.
But that's the thing, though. I think, like going with what Rahul was saying about players are a lot more short-sighted these days. And I think that's why the Clippers have a chance to, establish themselves for a good while. People see, want to go there, want to play with. You keep hearing Clippers used to be a joke when, we'd mentioned where players are going to. People really are considering the Clippers now.
Do you guys
they wanna play
remember that
alongside.
Elton Brand, Baron Davis
Absolutely.
fiasco? Elton Brand tells Baron Davis, "Hey, come here, play with me on the Clippers. We'll make noise." Then Then he bolts the second Davis says. It's the ultimate,
So-
I hate you.
Wow,
Exactly, ditch a guy on the Clippers, which is a great point.
And
But,
then Davis gets traded.
I don't think, in today's NBA, people it led to Kyrie Irving. I don't think people want, which led to, LeBron James butterfly effect. But
Yep.
I think people, don't necessarily think anymore, I want to be playing for, say, the Lakers. They want to be where the other great players are. And that isn't the Lakers right now. Granted, any GM, with a bit of luck, can make a splash in free agency. You got to hope that Julius Randle pans out, recovers, and that they can sign these marquee guys. But it's, it's kind of a cycle there. You have to get the first guy interested in coming there. That's the building block. And that is why also what we see a lot of destruction of teams willing to overpay a guy, hoping that guy will be the building block, and it doesn't work out. That is kind of what happens out east. And that's part of the lack of growth.
Well, the NBA is. I hear a lot of people say NBA is a copycat league. People are going to copy. Other teams are going to copy success stories, no matter what they are.
Yeah, well, they are all copycat leagues, but yeah.
Yeah, sure, but obviously, and then I'm going to make, I guess, a theory here. The two ways of winning that have been, I guess, used the last decade or so have been San Antonio's
The Heat
way,
and the Spurs.
the Heat and the Spurs. San Antonio's way, building through the draft, getting a bit lucky, and draft. Sorry, I already said building through the draft, and then making very prudent free agent signing. There's the other way. There's the build a super team way, which the Lakers tried and it didn't work out. Obviously, if you're going to play 2K12 like I did, you have Steve Nash, Kobe Bryant, and Dwight Howard. You're having the best time on 2K12, but that didn't work out for them.
Well, I think
Didn't
part of the
really-
problem is Dwight never wanted to be there too, and they made a mistake. That's a team. That's the Lakers' fault for getting a guy who wanted to leave as soon as he was there.
Sure, but the super team method, that hasn't been completely proven to work either.
Right, we've only seen.
It
You're
has,
and you're
just
seeing, well, you're
not
seeing
as
with
much
Cleveland.
recently.
You're seeing with Cleveland now that it's not.
Well, it worked for the
going
Celtics,
completely fine.
or it worked for the Pierce Garnett
Sorry,
Celtics.
you're right. The Celtics were the first
It worked
to do
for
it.
the LeBron Heat. It nearly worked for the Karl Malone Lakers.
Yeah, but Malone was old, and Payton was.
He got injured.
I'm trying to think of other situations where Drexler went to Houston.
I would consider that. I would
Barkley
even consider
came really close when he went to Phoenix.
the thing you saw with the Shaq, Kobe Lakers teams too is those role players really matter. Fisher mattered. They don't win that ring without Robert Horry for sure. Talking about Big Shot Bob, 7-time title winner.
Yeah.
You need those quality role player guys, which a lot of these super teams now don't have. They're we'll deal with this, sign all minimum level guys, and that's not exactly how it ideally works either.
But all these teams get their role players on discounts. Like Boris Diaw was super cheap for the Spurs. So you can talk about building through the draft and identifying great talent that way. But between Diaw and Green and other players that are waived by other
That's
teams,
fair, yeah.
and you're kind of seeing that with the Heat now with Whiteside, but they've had plenty of big men that just didn't pan out at all. So it's not
Greg Oden.
necessarily indicative of anything. But hitting on some of these role players while also having that nucleus of one or two all NBA caliber players is how you win a championship. How you get those two all NBA caliber players. I mean, you could get super lucky the Thunder and just so happen to draft them. But I feel like for most teams, you're not that lucky, and you need to be like the Heat or the Rockets or someone else and just get them through maneuvering trades and free agency.
Right. I feel like we've been on a tangent.
Yeah,
past,
I don't think it was a
hour.
bad tangent though.
It was a pretty long tangent, so
Yeah.
I guess we'll get down to the All-Star game now. We'll get down to
Yeah.
selections. I feel like there's enough to talk about with the the selections. They there's a couple of players, maybe like one or two that we disagree with, but we've drafted up our teams the way we would have built them this year. Some of us stuck to the format that the All-Star game has, and some of us didn't.
Yeah, some of us had our own agenda to push here. So,
but I mean, I don't know who's gonna get us in trouble for it. So, Rahul, you're the guest. I guess you can start off.
Sure.
You can say who your like starting five are, and
Yeah, I'll start. And
I guess we can just read out like the actual starting.
do you want to go over?
yeah, I guess to preface my lineup, I think the three of us kind of agree with this mentality for looking at basketball in general, is that rather than the way the NBA structures it in the All-Star game, either today of backcourt, front court, or before that, point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, center, I think the way that I approached this was you kind of have like three broad stroke positions to think of in terms of someone who's a primary ball handler or point guard, someone who's on the wing, which is traditionally the 2 or the 3, and someone who plays bigger, which is traditionally the 4 or the 5. Today, veering more towards just the 5 with your stretch 4s and tweeners like Draymond Green. But I basically use that format of, in order to set my lineup of, 1 point guard, 1 wing, 1 big, and then 2 flexes of a point guard / wing and a wing / big. But Sanjay's gonna.
Yeah. So here's who we got. We'll start with the East. Our actual starters are the guards are John Wall and Kyle Lowry. Forwards are LeBron James and Carmelo Anthony, and then we have Gasol in that hybrid role, which they call in the front court starting as well. And then the reserves are Al Horford, Chris Bosh, Paul Millsap, all as front court players. Jimmy Butler is guard / forward, which I'm sure you're super excited to cover. And then the backcourt of Dwayne Wade, Jeff Teague, and Kyrie Irving. So do we all want to do our East first, then we'll get to the West?
Yeah, sure.
Probably the easiest way to do
Rahul,
it.
you go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, my starting lineup's not too different from that. I have Wall as the starting point guard, Lowry as the point guard / wing, Butler as the wing, LeBron as the wing / big, and Horford as the big.
So, any rationale on those guys, or?
I mean, I guess the only real difference here is that I'm able to slot Butler into my starting lineup, whereas the NBA treats him as a backcourt player, and I think that really is just mostly driven by the fact that, yeah, he plays the 2, but his position is a lot closer to what LeBron and Melo play than what Wall and Lowry play.
And you and I both left Pau Gasol off our actual roster, which I found surprising considering he was a starter. You got him on?
I still have him starting.
You still have him starting? Okay, I'm excited for that debate in a minute.
I mean, yeah, sure. Yeah, you guys can
Well, I don't know if you want to say.
You can continue
Think about
first.
No,
Gasol.
About Pau Gasol, I mean, he's been fine, but he's just the best offensive player on a big market, good team. But if you look at his numbers and his production and everything else, it is very good, and it's refreshing to see compared to what he was doing last year on the Lakers. But I feel like it's not too far off what Carlos Boozer was doing his first few years in Chicago. So I think it's part system.
Really?
Boozer was nearly their second leading scorer his first
He was
few
not
years.
20 and 10.
It's something like 17.
But Rose was also taking more shots and getting more points. Like in terms of distribution, like Gasol's better and is a better player than Boozer. But at the same time, I think like between role and scheme and everything else, I just feel like based on who I have as my reserves, I don't think he deserved a spot.
So it killed me to leave him off the roster because I don't know if you guys know. Pau Gasol is my favorite NBA player.
Is it because he speaks Spanish?
It is not because he speaks Spanish, but thank you. I really tried to find a spot for him, but at the end, he's been a great player for Chicago, but he has been such a defensive liability for them this year, and I put a lot of thought into that. For me, he ended up being the 13th man, the guy who just left off. And it's great to see the resurgence. He is a guy who you can use as a primary or secondary option with great effectiveness. But his defense is hurting that team a lot to the point that he's almost a net neutral at times. Still, I think his offensive contribution should be rewarded. But I just had a lot of trouble putting him on this roster. And I think, once we go over the full lineup, you might be able to poke a hole in it too. I just thought there's other guys at that position who did more. I had Kyle Lowry as well, John Wall, LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, and Al Horford from the Hawks starting.
Yeah, mine's similar to yours, except with Powell. It's Wall, Lowry, LeBron, Horford, Powell. It's kind of sticking to the more traditional 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 position types. I guess Horford's been playing he's been playing the 5 for Atlanta, but he came into the league
As a forward, yeah, absolutely.
as more of a natural forward playing off of Joakim
I agree.
Noah.
With that format for the best 5s in the East, it's probably Gasol, Bosch, and Jefferson. And given this year and what they've done, Bosch may have not played enough minutes, and I can see Gasol being slotted in.
Yeah, I mean, I always want like one sort of true 7-footer like center, because I mean it's a dying breed in the NBA, and I don't like to see
Dinosaurs get killed off like Bosch.
Sure, yeah. I mean, Chris Bosh to me will never be like a true like center. You know, he doesn't play in the paint enough. His game is too too
Stretchy.
Yeah, you know, he's your prototypical
It's too new Euro.
stretch forward. Yeah, I mean, so Wall, Lowry, we all agree. I mean, I can't really Jimmy Butler. I would love to have fit into the lineup, but Kyle Lowry has just been so good this year.
We both went more traditional with that too. I think you stuck to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I went more like guards, forwards, and Rahul went with his positions, which I think he has. We all agree that that's how things have turned into the NBA.
It's more of how much liberty do you want to take with the traditional format, which Alex took all the way through to in theory, in the West, I don't want to get too far ahead, you could have trotted out 5 point guards in your starting lineup if you got super, aggressive with it. But you can't run a basketball team that way. So there is some middle ground. The NBA is trying the front court, back court method, but we'll see how it evolves in the future.
You're right. And then my bench, I'm pretty sure our benches are all pretty similar to each other, but it's Millsap, Kyrie Irving, Jimmy Butler, Jeff Teague, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh.
I came pretty close to that. I had Jimmy Butler, Dwayne Wade, Paul Millsap, Chris Bosh. I had Kyrie Irving too. I actually had 2 guys here who
we'll set a list up of all 3 of our lineups.
Yeah, that way any you guys listening can check it out.
Yeah, it's hard to keep track of.
But 2 guys I had here making their first All-Star appearance, and try not to scream too hard here, is Andre Drummond from the Pistons. And not just recognizing what the team has done, which has been great, but he's really stepped up this game. He's become one of the most efficient players in the league, cleaning up boards, scoring at a lot better clip. Still could work on his free throws, but I think he's deserved this nod, and I think what he contributes on the defensive end to me, it ended up being a better package than Pau Gasol to put in here. And the other guy is actually from the Orlando Magic, Nikola Vucevic, who's having a crazy season.
USC homer.
Oh, please.
Oh, no, sorry.
No,
you went to
that's-
USC.
yeah, you
You're
went to USC, I'm a UCLA guy, yeah.
I take that.
That's
all
the
good.
opposite.
Yeah, I was surprised. He wasn't, on my first consideration when I put down this list. But I tried to look into, situations, numbers a little more. And he's putting together a great 2010 season that hasn't, it hasn't been empty stats. He's rebounding at an incredible rate. He's proving, and, I think I ripped on you, Alex, when you said the contract they handed out to him was decent. And that's actually looking like a real nice steal now.
It's a good contract.
So I was definitely wrong about that. I think he's an all-star this year. And again, given, his range and what he's done on defense, I had him slightly. It was between him and Pau Gasol for the last spot. And I really think, even on a terrible Magic team, he's earned it and deserves to be here.
I guess going off that, I'll go into the Pau debate. Pau's been the number 1 option. Essentially, Jimmy Butler's provided all the wing scoring, obviously.
Right.
I think if you made me pick a Chicago Bull at gunpoint, I'd pick Jimmy Butler over Pau. But for me, the most consistent scoring threat they've had has been Pau. They need a bucket, if they're on the wrong end of a 5 or 6-0 run or something, and they need to get some quick offense just to keep themselves from getting run out of the building, they've just been able to dump it into Pau. He's been able to put on a couple moves or use his passing to his advantage, and he's been able to get them a bucket more often than not. He's a very reliable player, and 20 and 10 from someone like him is more valuable to me when you think of the fact that they're winning games. They're, I believe, a 3 seed or a 4 seed.
The 3 through 5 is within half a game of each other. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's all pretty tight. And honestly, they're still my pick to come out of the East. That's an entirely different debate. So I think you can say you can use the word empty stats, but I think Vucevic, when you think of the fact that his team is absolutely awful, like he's more of an example of an empty stats kind of guy.
Yeah.
He's obviously, if we put him on a good team, he'd still be a good player,
Right.
and he'd still help a team win. He's just on a very bad team, but I just feel like Pau Gasol putting up 20 and 10 and scoring like 30 or 40 points some nights is more impressive on a winning team where he's one of the first or second options than a Vucevic or even a Drummond, who's Andre Drummond until a month ago wasn't playing well. This is a reward for the entire first half of the season.
But he's still got a 2010 season as well, on averages, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I thought you meant 2010, like the year.
Oh, no. Go
Back
ahead.
when he was in college.
Yeah, but I think you're picking the wrong Piston. I think Andre Monroe is far more.
Greg Monroe?
Sorry, not Andre Monroe.
You're
Yeah,
good.
sorry, Greg Monroe is far more like value as an all-star player than Andre Drummond. Like watching Greg Monroe ever since Josh Smith left, he's been coming into his own. Like
The
obviously
entire
they've been.
team came into their own with
Right.
Josh Smith. Josh Smith should be in the All-Star game and then benched and kicked out, and you'll see that team.
Yeah, but I mean, I didn't feel like Andre Drummond made that like significant of a leap. I feel like
Really?
he just has been doing what he's been good at the last. I think last year was his breakout year.
Stan Van Gundy is like, really pushed him, I feel, to that next level and helped get the best out of him. But I know you cut one more Pistons guy who's hurt now from your roster at the end.
Yeah, so let's run through my guys real quick. I got Irving, Wade, Millsap, Bosch, Drummond, Anthony, and Teague. The Drummond versus Gasol thing we've talked about for a bit. I completely understand Alex's point. I just felt, given the total package, and I don't like these arguments, but I think the best one kind of against Gasol is if you remove him from his team and you remove some of these other bigs that I've put in between Bosch, Drummond, Millsap, who are on the reserves from their teams. I'm really curious to see what Chicago could be, and part of me thinks it could be better if you have Taj Gibson roaming around there a lot more. They're a lot better defensively, and I don't think he's giving up that much on offense. You get Mirotic more minutes. You can get McBuckets a few more minutes. It's just a more interesting team that I feel like has more upside and is building more to the future. Sure, Gasol might give them a slightly better chance of making a run in the finals, but I feel like in that long term and forcing a guy like Thibs out of his comfort zone to use a lot of these guys who I think have a little bit more upside and could be a lot more interesting. I'm not as high on Gasol on the Bulls as I feel like you guys are, and in terms of that like replacement level, like next guy up type of thing, I just feel like in terms of the value to the team and rewarding some of that other stuff, I'm just not as high on him because my next guys out were Brandon Jennings, who's just hurt and disqualified, so we don't have to discuss him. But my next guy out was Brandon Knight, and that was more between him and Teague because I'm probably not as high on Jeff Teague as the rest of you guys. And just looking at that Milwaukee team and seeing the steps that Brandon Knight made, I feel like this would be that good Drew Holiday type. We want to recognize the accomplishment you're making in this season. The conference is kind of weak and there's room for you to get in. I feel like he could have gotten that level of recognition.
Just to rebut the Pau Gasol thing, I feel like he's been playing a lot of center for Chicago. Yeah, Joakim Noah's been having a lot of like small injuries that have been holding him out for like a week here, there, and a couple days, couple games here and there. So he hasn't really gotten into like his full like flow of games yet. So they've had to play Pau at the 5. Taj Gibson is having like one of his worst seasons of his career, and I know he only came out of USC, I think maybe like 2008, but he's already like 31 or 32 or something like that. Like he's not like the young athletic guy who's flying around everywhere anymore. So Pau is pretty much like the best big man they have right now. Like Maybe not on defense.
You know,
Joakim Noah is obviously a better
Right.
paint protector, rim protector, and probably just as good of a passer as Powell. But if you need a bucket and you're down 1 or 2, you're throwing it into Powell.
But
And he's making something happen.
Two separate things. One, and I'll try and keep this first one real short. Isn't it sad that we had this whole discussion and the name Derrick Rose hasn't come up once?
I mean, yeah, it is sad, but he's had how many injuries in the last 5 years?
I don't know. I was promised by someone on this podcast that this was the year for Derrick Rose.
I think we're maybe a year away.
We're also
I
halfway
don't
through
think
the
he's-
season.
But there's still time.
He's not getting back to MVP. He's not getting back to that kind of level. We've seen him a couple of times go off for these big scoring nights, but I just don't think he's got it in him anymore to do the 25 a game, night in, night out, like dunking on Steve Nash like he did back during that MVP season. That's just not happening anymore. So he's gonna have to adapt his game and do whatever he can do well, at an elite level for them to be a finals kind of team. But I just still think you can't not give Powell an all-star bid. Maybe you can argue not a starter. Fine, I don't care. Al Horford can be your starting center or whatever. But he needs to be on that roster somewhere. And honestly, your mentioning of Brandon Knight has kind of made me think I completely blanked on Brandon Knight when I was just drawing up my team right before this. I know you guys put a lot more thought into it. But I went the only Wizards game I've seen this year was against the Bucks, and he was the only player on the Bucks that I was actively afraid of. He's making all his shots. He's literally been the single reason they've done as well or not poorly as they have.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you clearly believe that I didn't give Powell enough thought, and maybe that's true, but I guess I probably gave too much thought staring at Jeff Teague versus Brandon Knight for that last wild card spot that's in there. And at the end of the day, I think I just went with rewarding the guy on the better team rather than the guy who's probably doing more for his team. And
well, that's the thing. Sorry, not to cut you off. That's why I had Drummond and Vucevic. Personally, I don't buy this idea that with a team like the Hawks or whatever, you have to have 3 All-Stars, which I ended up one guy short with Teague, but you guys both gave him, and the NBA did too. If there's just one guy, there's one guy. We saw that, with the Lakers teams back when we had Nick Van Exel even making the All-Star squad. I'd rather give it to guys whom me, and I know we've differed on who these players are, stand out more than just rewarding the best teams.
But I feel like that translates better to a league where every team had its all-star. There used to be more parity. No, I'm not. That's a bad word to use.
I know what you're going for, though.
There used to be every team had its guy, or had someone who they believed was its guy, and then it was just I don't know, the Lakers and their guy, or a couple of guys versus Celtics and their main guy.
Sure, and that goes back to our earlier argument too about where we were saying, super teams, too many of these guys are going to be on
right,
one.
but now Kevin Love isn't getting on the All-Star team when a year ago we thought he was one of the 5 or 6 best players in the league.
He's having a terrible season.
He's having a bad season, but at the same time, I don't know. I don't see rewarding. Okay, Love is a bad guy. If he a bad example. If he was having his normal season and still wasn't getting on, then I'd have a problem with it.
I think where we're going to run into more discussion and more issues really is probably the West. Where,
all right, so
we're kind of stuck on one person in the East, which is probably
Carmelo.
I was going to say Pau Gasol, and
I didn't
that's
have Carmelo.
you didn't have him at all?
I didn't have him at all. No. He's been injured.
Well,
too.
we completely messed up.
Well,
Again, he's one of the last guys in for me.
He's one of my starters.
I had Wade, which
I had Wade too.
I would cut Wade and add Brandon Knight.
I think personally,
Brandon has played more games.
My take on Wade is when he's played, and it's been a majority of games. Unlike Kevin Durant, we'll get to him in a second. I left him off. Wade has made such an impact, and he's still been a great player. I was expecting him after the last finals to really start, reducing his role, be phased out, become a second option, and he's had a slight, I hesitate to use this word with someone who's a Hall of Famer like him, a resurgence in his season. He's been a killer player, he's been very effective for that team, so I didn't find it that hard to put him on my roster. With Melo, the Knicks blow, right? But And he's been taking games off, which is kind of, as a basketball fan, it just kind of sucks in general for whatever reason, whether he's protecting himself, whether, they're trying to look forward to that draft pick to reload the franchise. But Melo is still playing well, even without any help. He's put together a really nice season as well.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I haven't really discussed yet, that was one of the kind of tiebreakers I've tried to use, is basically, do I think this guy would be fun to watch in an All-Star game? So someone like, let's pick Kyrie Irving. I would probably have him ranked in terms of point guards a little bit lower than most people on the list, but I think in an All-Star game setting, he's someone you definitely want the ball in his hands, and I think he's going to do exciting stuff in an exhibition game where people aren't playing defense. Whereas someone like Dwayne Wade, I feel can get grandfathered in because he's a big name, he's a flashy player, and he's fun to see in a setting like this.
Right.
So speaking of fun players, I think there's one guy starting out west that none of us had, Kobe Bryant. I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on this. He didn't play well this season, and he is obviously hurt and didn't play a lot this season. None of you guys had him on your roster either, right?
Yeah, no, I didn't have him.
So I got...
Also, he's injured. So
that's what I'm saying. Well, we at least gave the nod to Brandon Jennings.
I
put together.
Brandon Jennings was my fifth snub for these.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I had Stephen Curry, James Harden, those two guys who I think are going at it for the MVP this year. Blake Griffin, Anthony Davis, and Marc Gasol out west.
So the same lineup.
It's essentially what's going to be starting.
The Harden for Kobe.
Harden for Kobe, which is going to be happening anyways.
Who's coaching the West?
Steve Kerr.
Thank you.
Sure it's not going to be Klay Thompson?
Why?
I think
it's the same way Spoelstra trotted out Bosch and other coaches have trotted out their guy as the
replacement. I think they already gave the.
Did they already give it Harden? Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
So,
I think they went by the next leading vote getter.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Well, in the West, I think I ended up with something fairly similar, except for one guy or two. But I ended up with, and it wasn't intentional, but it worked out that way. I think 10 of the top 12 guys in terms of efficiency and wins added to their team, and I think that's more so out west than the east. We've seen guys who have just been clear leaders for their team, or even as a second banana, still just a dominant guy.
Right. Who did you have on your bench?
On my bench, so I had Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook as my two backup guards. I had LaMarcus Aldridge as one of my forwards. I had Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Heinrich?
I had Kirk Heinrich. I had DeMarcus Cousins.
Boogie!
As center, and I'm glad he got Kobe's spot. I think Damian Lillard was more deserving, but they're both quality guys. I would have liked to see the other one get it if it's Lillard over Tim Duncan, who I didn't have, and I had Damian Lillard and Klay Thompson as my two wildcard guys. But the other forward I had, I spent a while looking over this. I couldn't find anyone I was convinced by. I ended up with Draymond Green. Yeah.
Really?
Draymond Green.
I mean, I don't think he's a fun player to see out there in the All-Star game. But then again, I guess Joakim Noah might not be because he plays
Draymond Green's
defense.
a great player. Don't get me wrong. He's a really good player. He's not an All-Star this year.
Compared to Dirk and Tim Duncan, I really did. Like I said, I put a lot of consideration also into defensive value. And this is a guy who already defensively has been worth 4 wins to the Warriors. We don't need to get into this advanced stat debate, but he's been that good. And for that last spot.
What? Blake Griffin?
I had Blake Griffin starting.
Right, you did.
Yeah. But I thought, he has had a better season than Nowitzki and Duncan. Again, we can ignore the advanced stats we can ignore the advanced stats that say he's better, but even when it comes down to that last spot, he has been the anchor of what's turned out to be the best defense in basketball. The guy is having a breakout season.
It's not the fact that Andrew Bogut's been healthy the majority of the season, or
no, he's been their best defender.
I mean, no, I agree with you. He's definitely been their best defender.
Right? No, Andrew Bogut has been a key part. Don't get me wrong, but he is the best defender on the best defense.
I mean, it's the first time in 2 or 3 years of that team in its current state being together that he's not been out injured for a very long period of time,
and that helps.
So that has to mean something.
Sure, it does. And Bogut, and Rahul mentioned this before. Bogut being healthy, Draymond Green being there also inflates the numbers of a guy like Steph Curry, whose defense looks better because this guy isn't having a clear path to the rim of a Klay Thompson.
I mean, my biggest worry with those advanced defensive stats is, you can pick which ones you like. I just looked at defensive real adjusted plus minus, and Steph Curry was a number 2 point guard based on that stat. And just looking at that, I understand they're always outliers, but you got to feel that that system and those players together are much greater than the whole on defense, because defense is about scheme, is about system, is about the other guys on the floor. And, while, I won't disagree about Draymond Green's ability to guard one-on-one, be put on the best player, be put on fours all the way down to one, and all that type of stuff. I agree it's very good. I'm just a bit hesitant to take someone and put them in the All-Star game because of their defense, unless they're a center, because it's centers that really anchor and enable defense for teams, whereas wings and those other players, it's just a little bit more dicey, and that's ignoring the argument of who do I think is flashier and more exciting and funner to see in an All-Star
Sure,
game.
to be fair, I mean, Draymond Green is a guy who also, I think we all agree here, passes the eye test. Like, when you watch him defend, you can tell he's doing a great job, and they can slap him on anyone and say, hold a step back.
That's because his job, he gets told every night when he's going out there, okay, you've Steph Curry and Klay Thompson are going to generate you 60 points, or in some form they're going to basically generate a majority of the scoring. Harrison Barnes and Andre Iguodala and David Leo make up the rest of the scoring. You just go out there, you hit your open shots when they come to you, you play hard defense, and you shut down the other team's best wing player or, I guess, tweener big man, and that's all you do. That's not all-star worthy. Because otherwise you just hand out all-stars like Tony Allen the year he was an amazing wing defender his couple of years, because he was just a 3-and-D guy. That's not
Maybe
all-star.
not 3, but
Maybe not 3 all the time, but that's not all-star worthy stuff. That's not what the NBA sells itself on. That's why I would rather take a Damian Lillard, who's a turnstile on defense for the All-Star game, but still has a huge impact on his team, over a Draymond Green, who's the 4th scoring option, but is very important in a team aspect.
To me, it came down to Draymond Green, Dirk, or Duncan. Their seasons haven't stood out to me. Maybe that's part of why I made that decision too. Draymond Green's season has stood out to me over those two guys. He's been, even like you said, as a 4th option, he's been more valuable to the Warriors than Nowitzki has been to the Mavs team, and then Duncan has been to the Spurs, even with Kawhi Leonard out.
Even though the Mavs are right behind the Warriors
Yep.
in offensive efficiency, Dirk still isn't. You don't think Dirk's a part of that?
I think Dirk's absolutely a part of it. I just think that Dirk's
Monte
production.
Ellis deserves more chance at the All-Star game than Draymond Green. Yeah, he does. He's one of the main scoring options.
We have that's part of the positions thing too, but we have way too many guards here. I left out a guy I know both of you have in Mike Conley, for instance. I would still take him over Monte Ellis in the All-Star game.
Right.
But if you want to run down, we can debate Draymond Green endlessly. So if you want to move on to,
I mean, I think it's too difficult to take a defensive first person and really assess their value outside of the system they're actually in. I hate doing cross-sport analogies, but during the Super Bowl when Cliff Averill got hurt, Sanjay, you remember I texted you, game's over. And someone who's not even one of the 5 best defensive players on that Seattle team, but in the same way in the NBA, given scheme, given who else you're playing around and everything else, really drives your value. Draymond Green on that team might be one of the best defenders in the league and should get consideration for first team all defense at the end of the year. But on a different team and everything else, it's just, I don't know how much of that could be unlocked. And part of being an all-star, if you look at someone who's not on as great of a team that you mentioned before, who's making a lot of noise, whether it's Anthony, whether it's Vucevic, if you put them on another team, their production will waver in different directions based on who they're playing with, but they'll still be productive and they'll still be putting up great numbers, maybe just assist here instead of a rebound there or something like that. Whereas with Draymond Green, if you swap him to another team, it could be a massive fall off a cliff if he's, say, on the 76ers and just not playing with NBA talent.
But that being said, I think that's a little more, and I get your argument on the side of player evaluation. How do you build your team as opposed to the season he has been having, not the hypothetical one, which has been phenomenal by all standards.
Yeah, it's All-Star game is definitely to reward how you're currently doing, or we'd all have Kobe Bryant in our All-Star game because he has the best career out of all these players that are in our All-Star teams. But it's still just kind of like this tough to articulate belief of defense in the All-Star game.
I think we can just all take away from this argument that thank God Sanjay doesn't run the league. Otherwise, we'd just be in a terrible spot for the All-Star game. We'd have Draymond Green in there and Tony Allen, and I'm kidding.
Well, there might be a fight, and that might be more
right.
exciting.
What, Rahul, who did you have in your West?
I'll just run through it real quick. Starters, Curry, Westbrook, Harden, Gasol, Davis. I get to have those three guards in there with the way that I think about how
because
it should
fuck
be.
you.
But hey, if we had a starting lineup of Curry, Westbrook, Lillard, Paul, and Conley, who thinks that those might not be the five guys who are going out there playing the best of their abilities in the West? You could argue that it's not how you build a team. They would lose the game, but like
you got your five top talent.
yeah,
I get what you're saying.
But anyway, so my reserves are Paul, Lillard, Thompson, Griffin, Aldridge, Conley, and my last one, who I think is the point we all kind of have in contention, was Dirk Nowitzki, and that's really driven by a combination of he's a Hall of Famer, he's a great player, and he'll be fun to watch in an All-Star game because he'll just let the threes rain from downtown, and it'll just be exciting to watch.
Right. Yeah, I can't really argue with that lineup. I think you guys are probably going to argue with mine.
Well, yeah, you have two guys there. I had one of them. And
Yeah, I mean, my first guy
Cousins.
out was Cousins.
Yeah.
Cousins was someone who, like...
Cousins deserves to make it.
Yeah, Cousins was someone who would have liked to make it. The bigs I had in there, and Griffin, Aldridge, and the starters, tough argument versus Nowitzki, closer argument. And for me, the real reason to cut Cousins out was after his coach was fired. You could see the motivation kind of escape him. That's more on the Sacramento Kings ownership side as to why this happened. But given that and that this is how you've done in the first half of the season, that was kind of the driving factor for me to give him the first snub.
Well, I mean, until the viral meningitis hit him, I think it was sometime in, I want to say mid-December, something like that. He caused him to miss 10 games. And I think somewhere around game 4 or 5 of that stretch was when they were going through like a 5-game losing streak, and they fired their head coach. But like before that point, he was like, it was going to be him and Anthony Davis and probably Marc Gasol would have gotten in there as the starting big men in the All-Star game. Like he was playing that well, like 28 and 13 every night or something like that. Like I had him on my fantasy team. He was on a tear. I can tell you. So I mean that's why he kind of like lost the momentum. He's never really gotten back onto that same kind of form, but he's still like 20 and 11 every single night. Like he's doing well. I mean, what's killing him is the whole bad team situation, and people are always like going to punish people who are playing on bad teams. Like,
kind of like Nikola Vucevic.
Yeah, kind of like me and Nikola Vucevic, except Cousins can actually play defense.
Cousins has been having Vucevic okay, but Cousins has been having a lot better season than Vucevic. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem I ran into in the West, I was like, God, how can I fit all these good players in? In the East, I filled out maybe 2/3 of the roster. I was staring at these blank spaces like, do I really want to argue some of these guys in, and will I be able to defend it if
like,
I'm too
I've
different?
got a blank
I was going to
space,
say it if
baby,
you didn't.
and I'll write your name.
I was about to say it if you didn't. Oh my God.
I mean, I guess I should tell that to Jeff Teague then.
Yeah. My lineup was Curry, Harden, Klay Thompson, Davis, and Gasol. The Klay Thompson thing is kind of pretty much just me being on the bandwagon ever since the 37-point third quarter he had a couple weeks ago. That was the most crazy scoring barrage I've seen since the 81-point game.
That was...
No, yeah, don't worry.
No, I was wondering if T-Mac was after that, because I would consider that
Wait, which game?
The 13 points in 35 seconds.
That was impressive. Don't get me wrong. That was really impressive.
But you're saying just an onslaught of scoring? Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
I think he finished with like 55. Like,
yeah,
very impressive.
Yeah,
game.
so I was saying you're just saying like a spurt. Yeah.
I think it was 13 for 13 in the third quarter. Like 9 for 9 on 3-pointers.
Yeah, I'll vote for the
Insane.
T-Mac, but it's not an argument with having because it was all just watching and not being able to believe what you're watching.
I mean, he put Daniel Marshall and Kobe's 3-point record for 12 in a game under assault there. I was a little worried.
Yeah. So I pushed Clay into the starting lineup because I couldn't really think of like.
I mean, that's understandable. I had him second guy on the bench.
And also, if I put this next guy in the starting lineup, you guys would have just like gotten up and walked out. But I have on my bench, I have Durant, I have Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook, DeMarcus Cousins, LaMarcus Aldridge, Blake Griffin, and Mike Conley. Griffin and Conley I have as like my last two in because I think everyone's like overhyping Blake Griffin this year. I don't think he's been as good this year. I think Chris Paul has been like absolutely amazing, and if Steph Curry wasn't having the year he's having, then Chris Paul would be automatically in. But Griffin just like sneaks in barely for me. It was a tough one between him and Draymond Green, but I just had to take Griffin.
Yeah, I think between the talent and excitement,
Yeah.
Blake Griffin is an all-star.
And the fact that he's actually an all-star.
So, I mean, we disagreed on Durant. I think I gave, for instance, what would have normally obviously been Durant's spot to Draymond Green. To me, at some point, and I hate this idea. You have to like know like where the line roughly is. I feel
How
like
many games
he played 20.
He's only played
less than
under
half the
800
games,
minutes.
yeah.
Whereas like
just don't
Harden's
care.
played nearly double the minutes.
And I get what you're saying.
like,
When he's
in
Here's the thing,
that
I just
regard,
don't- it's not an all-star game to me unless
right, you want the best players in, you want the MVP in, you want the guy who, when healthy,
which
has
makes
been.
me change my mind. I
arguably
know
the
about
best player.
Carmelo because Carmelo is. Like,
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why we have these
Yeah.
I mean,
arguments.
I just it's not an all-star game to me with Draymond Green instead of Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's the MVP. He's still probably the best player in the game. He's going to the All-Star game. Like that's happening. Like, and honestly,
Unless someone beats him one-on-one.
What do you guys think about
I
that?
love
'Cause
that.
I would love for Damian Lillard to be like, yeah, okay, I'll play you for the spot, and just have him and Damian Lillard go one-on-one like the Friday before the All-Star game. That would be incredible. I would give Lillard a chance in that. He might be able to do it.
I would pay a few $100s on pay-per-view to watch that.
I think
I wouldn't pay a few hundred. I'd pay a few hundred to watch.
But think about
KD
how
and
often you see
LeBron.
these guys play each other one-on-one. You never get that opportunity.
Right.
I think to wrap this one up, at least we can agree that Draymond Green in All-Star Weekend, if nothing else, should be to be the guy in the lane and the dunk contest.
No,
This is happening.
well, I mean, I think it would be fun just to see people dunk on Draymond Green. But the
Yeah.
Durant thing, like I just couldn't bring myself to not let him in. And I guess like the people on the border with me were Tim Duncan, but the Spurs just they don't even take the regular season that seriously, so
Yeah.
I can't take them.
Apparently 2 on
seriously.
series in this game. They're only 3 games. I mean, they'll obviously make it. They're only 3 games from being out of the playoffs. Which,
Right.
As are a handful of other teams right
Yeah.
around. them.
Sure. I mean, like OKC's out for now, but we know they'll make it.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing that makes it questionable me keeping Durant out is also having Westbrook as a starter. I feel like that's kind of just clashing ideas in of themselves, and you could easily argue Durant over Nowitzki, but I don't know. At some point you gotta. It's only a game after the first half of the season, so you gotta be a contributor in the first half of the season.
Do you guys want to talk real quick about the biggest leap of this season?
Sure.
Yeah, I got.
Do you know who it was? I mean, I'm referring to one person.
For me, it's Anthony Davis.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's,
guy who's
that's
made
what I was referring to. I
the
was
jump
like,
from good
I'm not
to
talking about who
absolute-
you think. I'm talking about
Who
the
it is.
only person.
Yeah, it's been an absolute just jump in every sense of the word into elite territory.
He's really scary. He's horrifying.
He's playing the best basketball out of everyone in the league for sure.
Do you think he's MVP?
I don't think he'll end up as MVP. There's too much. We were talking about this earlier. Too much politics in that. You know, people
What
love
if they make the
narratives.
playoffs?
If they make the playoffs,
Yeah.
he should be MVP.
Yeah, I think to me,
But if not,
I like the
great.
idea of giving the MVP to the best player, regardless. I think the guy for me, the favorite today, knowing how that award has gone in the past, is actually I think we disagreed on this one. Me and you too, maybe. I would take James Harden. He's had
That's who you think it would go to?
That's who I think it would go to, and between him and Davis, I'd give it to Davis because again I want to give it to the best player.
But Steph Curry's the front runner right now, right?
If the season ended today, Steph Curry is the best player on the best team and a very likable guy. So I would imagine the voters would vote for him. In my own opinion, I think it's a two-man race at this point in the season between Harden and Davis, just because they're the best players on teams that are playoff contenders in the West, who, due to Dwight Howard's injury and due to the Pelicans having just a pretty good roster, those guys are just doing more with less. So I don't know who I'd pick between the two. I don't think it really matters because, like I said, I'd imagine that Curry would actually win it. But I'm really excited to see how the rest of the season plays out, to see if one of those two can just put up good enough numbers, get enough wins, and wow the voters enough to take it from Curry.
Did you see Davis's three-pointer?
Absolutely.
That was the other night.
Yeah.
That had to be the NBA's dream.
I'm sold.
It was a complete player, and I'm gonna go right now. Not that this matters, like against like what a lot of Lakers fans have already been saying. Like I would love to see New Orleans keep him and build around him. They've had a lot of mistakes. They have really poor coaching, but you hate to see someone lose their superstar. And
unless you're a Lakers fan and you get him.
I don't. I would love to see. I would love to see a lot of players, pretty much anyone in the NBA at this point, as a Laker, because that's our team.
J.R. Smith,
Tony Rotten.
Okay, you guys both. No, but I do want to see teams be able to build. Like it frustrates me to see poor GMing, to see poor coaching, and I am a fan of basketball. Obviously, I don't want to see it with every team. I don't want to see the Celtics do well or the Clippers do well. But this is a team. They had their hand forced by Chris Paul. I would like to see them keep the guy. Keep the good pieces. It's nice to see Tyreek Evans still not really playing up to that contract, but playing a little better. Just put better pieces around him. Like Eric Gordon has been a serviceable player this year. So I'm hoping, he doesn't seem like the kind of guy that's going to force his way out. It'd be nice to see him lock him up and start to build there and get him a better coach than Monty Williams, who I don't think is doing anything to help out his development, to be honest. I think he's growing in spite of him.
I guess I'll say two things real quick. One, when you offhandedly said Chris Paul forced their hand, they have no owner, they have a bad team, and after the injuries he sees he has a limited window. Makes sense to get out of a terrible situation. But to kind of backtrack to Anthony Davis, it almost feels good for Kevin Durant that he was able to win MVP last year on like a incredible season and like a marginal teeny-weeny step back by LeBron James from the high peak that he usually has from his prime, because we could have lived in a world where the torch was just handed from LeBron to Anthony Davis and Kevin Durant doesn't have an MVP.
That's true. I hadn't even thought about that.
World we would live in.
I would just like to make the point that I think at the beginning of the season, if we run the track back, pretty sure I predicted Anthony Davis.
I'm pretty sure you did. I'll look it up and I'll throw that in.
So I'm gunning for Anthony Davis to win MVP, so I could be like, it was me, I called it. But
I mean, he should. He's been the best player in the league.
Right.
Yeah. So
I think with the LeBron, I don't know if we've seen the last of LeBron.
I doubt. No. I could do a whole podcast on why we haven't.
I think he's just trying to figure out the whole what piece is going to fit and what like. This is a terrible analogy. Round, like which piece is going to fit in which
square
hole.
Piece, round peg.
Yeah. Like they're just trying to figure out the pieces right now. Like, I mean, like I said, Kevin Love is trying to figure that out too.
I mean, there's no team I would want to face less from the East than Cleveland. Still,
I don't know. They're beatable.
But
they're pretty shitty on defense.
Who do you think is more dangerous in a series than them?
Well, I think I could pick a bunch of teams that could beat Cleveland.
Okay,
I would take the Wizards over Cleveland, but I'm a Wizards fan. Like,
if there's one team that stands out to you, is like the definite, like, who's your...
In a playoff series?
Yeah. Just in general. Not like, if I have a specific team, like, that I have going up against them.
Like, from the East you're talking about?
Yeah.
Better... But I don't know.
It's a gross choice, but it's still Cleveland is the thing.
No, it's not. Not to me.
Then who do you got?
I guess the better way to ask this is, if you play these series 100 times against this team and you get the best possible outcome from that team, which one from the East do you look at and go, I am scared shitless of their best possible efforts?
That rarely happens. And, like, I mean, I can say right now that, like, I'm not afraid of Cleveland, and then 3 months from now, they can come out and they could have figured it out and they could prove you guys right, and I'll just look like an idiot. But, like, at the time
right?
speaking,
No, understandable.
In February 7th,
we don't do out of context on Homer's
February
Anonymous.
7th, 2015, like, Cleveland doesn't scare me because they don't know who their primary ball handler is, because if it's Kyrie, then he's not distributing to the rest of the team, and if it's LeBron, then Kyrie isn't getting, like, the points that he can get. Meanwhile, Kevin Love is just trying to figure out whatever the fuck his role is. And the rest of the team is just kind of waiting for those guys to figure their shit out. Once they do, and once, like, they have it together, I'll be afraid. But until then, no. I'm not afraid. I would even pick Atlanta to beat them.
Really?
I would take
in a series.
The Wizards would beat them in a series.
In a series, okay.
Right now.
And I understand you're not saying looking forward. You're saying if the playoffs started right now. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. It's an unfortunate thing about basketball that the regular season for a lot of these teams is let's figure ourselves out and grow into something that can compete in the playoffs.
Right.
Because if you compare it to, say, football,
there's the off weeks.
Yeah.
There's no nights off in the NFL.
We have to win this game because, like, there's just so
16.
few games. But it's good in some ways because then you get to see a team like Cleveland grow, figure it out, and once they get to the playoffs, you can get hopefully this great product. Whether they make the finals, who knows? But if they can figure it out, if Chicago can figure it out with effectively a bunch of new pieces as well, like, we can have a very exciting playoffs.
What are you gonna say?
I was just gonna say I feel bad for, like, hedging so much and being like not, like, committed to it, but because I did the same thing at the beginning of the season. I said that, like, Cleveland could come out and destroy everyone, and I would feel like an idiot.
No, but it makes sense.
I thought that they weren't going to get it together.
To you, they're in the same state
months.
of uncertainty. I get that still.
Right, and, like,
it's just 50 games down the road.
Like, Miami did well, but even they started out like 13 and 14 to start their season.
It was only that Celtics team that came out of the gate
firing,
and that's, I want to say, the exception, and these are more the rules of when you have some upheaval, you figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, as a Lakers fan, Shaq and Kobe needed 2 years and a coaching change to even get started on doing anything useful.
Right. So, I mean, I feel bad for hedging so much, but, like, I'm more sold on the I guess the consistency of a franchise like the Bulls with Thibodeau, with his philosophy.
But is there consistency?
Well,
like,
they've made the playoffs consistently the last, like, 3 seasons. They have their leader in, like, Joakim Noah, I think, is the leader of that
But if you
team.
look at their roster of productive players who were on the team last year and this year, it's 3 guys in Butler, Gibson, and Noah.
But personnel-wise, they're the same. They have, like, you want to keep the same, like, 3 or 4 main guys as, like.
But like, I wouldn't say that Gibson, especially from what you've talked about this year, doesn't seem like a main guy. So you have very new pieces effectively from the last few years, and Derrick Rose, who's finally playing hopefully will play a full season. Pau Gasol, Mirotic, McDermott, some other changes in role players that have occurred. Even though some of these guys were on the roster, this is a very different team than they had last year and the year before.
Yeah, but not to the extent that Cleveland is what I'm saying. Cleveland just brought in 2 new
but, like,
top 10 caliber players.
Again, every situation is different.
Are used to getting the ball every time down the court.
But the Heat, their first year, still made it to the finals. So, like, you know, Cleveland, at least on some level,
and all I'm saying
has to
is
live up
I
to.
believe in Chicago making it to the finals with the players they have.
They have. You think that's
more than Cleveland getting their shit together and getting to the finals?
And I think that's completely fair. I just think you're overstating the consistency they have.
Right. Okay.
Because
we've heard that Thibodeau could be already on his way out too. That he might be out
That's
before.
not his fault.
Well, no, I think he's an amazing coach.
That's dumb.
That's management.
Owners.
They've consistently had bad management. You know, they had a hand in forcing Michael Jordan out the door, anyways. So you know, they have been run poorly. I think we do agree on that. And I would be thrilled to see the Thibodeau let go because that's a guy I would love to see in LA. I guess I'll take it to that because I feel like we should do final points here if each one of you wants to talk about anything else.
Yeah, sure. We can do a final point each if you want.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I want to talk Lakers. Like I said, we're in an interesting situation. The Lakers right now have gone on what's a...
You always want to talk Lakers.
Of course I do.
No matter how irrelevant they are, you want to talk about the Lakers.
Yes, the Lakers are absolutely... I'll give you that 100
At least he's
times.
not shoehorning them into trades like Simmons does.
Yeah, this is true. The Lakers are completely irrelevant in terms of basketball. But they caught... I hate to say it, they caught what was a lucky break in losing Kobe Bryant, in that the team, if the pick is in top 5 this year, it's going to go to a Phoenix team that's already really good. That Nash trade ended up being terrible. It's one that, you still make without the benefit of hindsight because they thought he was the final ingredient. Obviously, they were wrong, and trading 2 first-rounders for a 38-year-old was a questionable move, but not one they expected to end like this. So the Lakers are only 3 games back, shall we say, of the worst record in basketball, and could continue to keep falling, especially if Nick Young keeps playing the way he plays.
They're going to keep chasing the Knicks.
They lost crucial games in overtime against the Bucks and the Magic, which was one of the bigger games this week, since we're only 2 games, let's say, ahead of the Magic.
You refer to it as like chasing.
Yeah, this is really pathetic.
Lose more for Okafor.
You know who should be more pissed? Philadelphia. They've actually tried to lose.
And that's the thing, like you were mentioning teams in the West, they don't tank. This is kind of like the sad state of how pitiful the Lakers are.
I don't think they're really tanking.
They're unintentionally god-awful.
Yeah.
Like, Byron Scott was a poor choice, and I think, they made the choice to hire him not with, let's get a bad coach in here. Like, they thought he was a good choice, and they were wrong. They've filled the roster, the nicest pieces on this roster, besides Julius Randle, who's hurt, are Ed Davis, who just said today he was declining his $1 million option for next year because that makes sense. Why would he play for such a low salary? And Jordan Hill, who's going to get traded, hopefully at this point for a 2nd-round pick, which they've passed on him before. That's what his trade value is, and that's what the Lakers have come to. So I guess the hope is, finish with the worst or 2nd-worst record to guarantee that pick staying there. Don't make the mistake of trading that pick because the team isn't ready or even close to contending. Draft someone like a Jahlil Okafor. I don't know how you guys feel, but I'm huge on Emmanuel Mudiay too. I'd like to see one of those 2 guys playing as a Laker alongside Julius Randle.
I haven't seen Emmanuel Mudiay.
And that's fine. He hasn't playing in China.
Yeah.
In draft well this year, understand the team's going to be bad next year, and that pick is gone, unfortunately. But there's nothing that can be done about it. That doesn't mean you need to rush into trying to contend because the West is really good. The Lakers with a healthy Julius Randle, a healthy, Okafor, aren't going to be a good team still. They're still just going to be a growing team that's going to go something like 25-57, even with Kobe back. It's time for a reality check. But the move is, if you get those 2 guys, maybe you add someone decent in free agency, maybe someone like a Greg Monroe, who's the rare unrestricted free agent, because you're not going to get Jimmy Butler. You're not going to get some of these guys who are restricted free agents to come to LA. Their teams are just going to match. The Bulls have already said they'll max Jimmy Butler on a max deal. So if you get Greg Monroe, have something nice, a core of him, Julius Randle, again, maybe Mudiay running in the back court, and then you have room for 2 max guys in the next year. I don't buy this pipe dream for a second of, Kevin Durant, but you get, a good player.
Sorry.
No, I mean, I'm with you. I think it's far more likely he goes to the Wizards than the Lakers. The hope is someone more like a Russell Westbrook, Kevin Love, who said he'll opt in. Maybe if that doesn't work out, doubtful, get him, and then just get a couple supporting pieces and start it. Make LA an attractive destination again. I don't think Byron Scott's going to be part of that, but we'll see. The Lakers have a long, long way to go. You guys want to say anything about that? Move on. Next point.
I was just say, Rahul, do you have any closing point to make?
I guess I don't really have any particular closing point to make. One thing that kind of, I guess I would like to say now that I have some type of platform that more people will listen to than my Facebook wall.
Probably not, though.
No. Is really more around the distinction between tanking and rebuilding. People keep saying that teams like the Lakers or the 76ers are tanking. You don't tank at the beginning of the season. You're just bad because you don't have talent.
Right.
You tank at the end of the season when you're the Warriors, you're about to lose your protected pick, and you start sitting players and you just start actively losing games. I don't think the 76ers tank are are tanking this year because it's not even like last year where they're trading away all their NBA level talent. There is no NBA level talent. They're not a good team. You lose games when you're not good, and we'll see how it pans out. They could very well be like Utah, not really get any transcendent talent, and just be stuck in
Hell.
worse than no man's land. At least in no man's land, your fans think, oh, maybe we'll get the 8th seed and can make some Golden State Warriors noise. Instead, you're just bad.
Right.
So we'll see how this all pans out. I want to see a good Lakers and good Celtics franchise because that's just fun for the NBA. Same with the Knicks. But we'll see how all this works out, and you never know what's going to happen. Hopefully Durant's in DC in a few years, Westbrook is in LA, and everyone's just happy.
Except Oklahoma City.
No one cares about Oklahoma.
My last point, going off the whole All-Star Game theme, is talking about the All-Star Game coming back to New York City, coming back to Madison Square Garden. They're sharing it, like the whole festivities, with the Brooklyn Nets this year. So it's going to be All-Star Saturday night. It's going to be held at the Barclays Center, and the game itself, the All-Star Game, is going to be at Madison Square Garden on Sunday night. I think it's special because you hear so many players, young and old, talk about what it's like playing at MSG. Whether like even if it's the Knicks players themselves, they say it's always a transcendent experience to play there. So having the All-Star Game there, I'm really looking forward to it. Last time it was there, I think it was '98, and it was one of the
50th anniversary, was that the one?
Yeah, I believe so. And that
might have been Cleveland.
Michael Jordan won MVP, and he was going up against Kobe the whole night, and that was the big story of it. So, and the fact that it's in New York makes me. I'm gonna make a prediction. You guys can go ahead and make a prediction. It's all kind of a crapshoot about the All-Star Game MVP. I'm gunning for Carmelo. I know I said that.
You left him off your roster?
I left him off my roster because he plays for a terrible team. But since he's in the starting lineup, I wouldn't be surprised if he just went off. I wouldn't be surprised if all his Eastern Conference teammates just started feeding him the ball to try and get him the MVP at some point.
And if he wins,
if he was sitting there, no.
Oh, you think he wins it with the losing team?
Yeah. Didn't that happen last year?
I'm sure it's happening.
That happens. Because you score 85 points.
Yeah.
Right. So,
fair enough.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Carmelo got to around 29 or 30, and then John Wall and LeBron just started feeding Carmelo for open shots, and he just got to 40 points or something like that. It just wouldn't surprise me. So I'm going to pick Carmelo to be the MVP.
All right, I think the storylines sometimes they write themselves, and you can see them happening. So I think we're looking at either Steph Curry complete explosion,
right? Yeah.
Or Anthony Davis just having some monster swats on one end and throwing it down on the other.
Or maybe an FU game by Kevin Durant.
You think so? That would be interesting.
That'd be really great.
But I think
fuck you guys. I'm still the MVP.
I'm kind of cheating here, but I'll take those two guys. But I think it'll be definitely those two in a West victory. Not that the result really does matter.
Yeah. So in a prediction that I don't believe is going to happen, I think that LeBron James, looking at his situation in Cleveland and the chemistry that he needs to build with Kyrie and Love. Love is obviously not in this All-Star game, but Kyrie is. I can definitely see LeBron trying to feed Kyrie a lot and just creating a situation where Kyrie gets his back-to-back All-Star MVP and, just build some of that goodwill in a setting that ultimately doesn't matter.
Okay. Well, thanks for listening. I know that was a long pod, but we appreciate you guys listening. Thanks.